Hello world. Last time we did a video we went over the stamina system and kind of put the basics of that together. Today we're going to go over adding in our hunger system. We're probably just going to be able to do the first part of it, which is going to be the kind of base mechanics of it. And then in the second video after this, we're probably going to go over the UI. We'll kind of see what we can fit. These videos have been really long, so I'm trying not to overwhelm with too much at once. So first off, we're going to import a new animation, which is our eating animation. And to do that, it's just like how we did our other animations. We're going to go into our animation folder. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to have an extra folder, which I've created here called new animations or new anims, that I would import new animations into. And the reason why is because when you import an FBX file, it comes with all the previous animations as well. And we don't really need to have all the ones we already have. So we're just going to pick out the new one, which is going to be our eating one. And then we're going to move that into our main folder and delete the rest. So we go into here, right click, import, get our raptor. And like before, we're going to get our skeletal mesh for our raptor here. We're going to make sure we do not import mesh, which automatically tells it to import animation. And we just hit import. Okay, once that's done, so we've got, as you can see, all kind of our older ones here, but the only one we really want is going to be eat. So let's go ahead and get rid of these, we don't need them. Take this guy, double check and make sure everything's fine. And there he is. So he's just got a little animation that he plays when he's eating. It's nice and simple. So we have to plug this in like we did before, and this one's going to be a little bit different since we need to make sure we have something to eat, and we need to make sure we're not just doing this eating animation every time we hit a button and there's not actually food there. So let's get started with that. We're going to go into our inputs just like we did before. First, let's take this out of our new anims and move that into our regular animations. Just grab that, left click and drag it into animations, move here. Oh, I already have one in that one. How funny. Yeah, I already, did I move it in here? Yep, I did. Alright, I'm gonna get rid of that. So let's do that again. Take that, move it in there, hit move. Alright, should be in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and do save all. Okay, so now we're gonna add an input for eating. But we don't just want eating, because as far as I understand, if you hit the, basically like the E key, it's kind of your interact key. It does kind of various things depending on what you're interacting with. In the aisle, there's not really a lot to interact with. It's mostly just food. I think I don't even know if there's anything beyond just food and drink. But we still want the option to kind of build from it. We want to be able to detect what we're interacting with so that we can react accordingly. So we want an interaction input that just kind of, it's our key button that just says, I would like to interact with something, right? So go into input, actions, and you're going to create this interact. And just like the others, it's a bool. It's got the same press and release triggers. These are just kind of the default settings. Nothing else changed. This is pretty much the default. So just make sure you add interact, IA interact, save it. And then of course you want to go into your IMC. And just like with, you know, sit, just like with all that, it's pretty much the same deal. You just click on here, click interact, and then make sure you hit the keyboard, E, and then that's it. The rest is automatically there. Just save that. And that, once we get into our character here, so you're going to do, just like here, right click, you want to do interact. It's going to be all the way to the top here. So I interact, right? And instead of triggered, we're going to pull from started. And the reason why is because we need to check, do we have something to interact with? And if we do, we only want to fire this once. If we do triggered, it's going to fire when we press and when we release. We only want to do it when we first press. And we're going to build on this later, but right now we just need to know, is there something to interact with? And if so, let's try to eat it. So for this part here, all you're going to do is just go into variable, create a new variable. You want to just, I already have one, we'll just say interact item here. Just name it interact object though, if you would. And then here, click on that, type actor, because it's going to be an actor. And anything in the game that you can interact with that's in the world is probably going to be some kind of actor. So we're going to get an object reference, which just means we're going to kind of make a pointer to that object, whatever that thing is that we're trying to interact with. We want to point to that and say, okay, this is the thing I want to interact with. We're not actually getting that thing or copying it, we're just pointing to it. So make sure you select that, and that'll give you this here. So I'm going to use interact object that I already have here. And you're just going to take that, drag it out, get it. I'm going to check is valid, which basically means, is there something stored in this pointer? Is there anything here to interact with? We want to do the question mark, not the function. So do the question mark, and just like up here, and then you're going to make this new eating variable, which is a bool. Again, just click variable, you know, eating, whatever. Make sure you turn it into a bool. There you go. Alright. So drag that onto here. Again, just click, drag, get. Well, not actually get, we're setting. So set. And then this is going to be checked. So if it's valid, if there's something there to eat, to interact with, let's try to eat it. And if there's not anything to interact with, well, why am I even clicking this button? There's nothing there. So we're not going to do anything. We're going to set eat to no. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is play that eating animation. And again, we're just going to go into our, kind of got it in here to show you. We're going to go into here. And you remember in our event graph for our animation blueprint, we've got all this. After sitting and turning, we want to add eat. So again, you just get your character from here. That eating bool that we just added, you just get eating. And then you're just going to go ahead and promote it to a variable, which will give you this. And we just want to set it like so. So that'll give that access in the animation blueprint. And then, kind of like, if you remember in our sitting animation, we had those those notifies, those animation notifies. We're going to do something like that here as well, and we're going to have a couple. We might not need all of them right now, but we really want to be able to kind of customize this later, which we probably will. Then we want to make sure that it's very, very versatile. So go into animations. Oh, that's not my tutorial. There we go. So go into animations. Open up your animation or not the animation blueprint. Open up your eat animation. And we're going to add some notifies. So first of all, we want to go all the way to start here. We're going to add under the track 1. Going to right click, add notify, new notify, eat underscore start. Now we also want to know when exactly he bites into it. We want that to kind of matter. So whenever he bites into it, we're going to basically determine how much food he's getting. Because let's say if he goes to bite into it, but somebody else has grabbed it before he could, then he misses his bite, right? Or maybe just something happens and I don't know, gets up and runs off before he makes his bite. It would be silly if we started the animation, the food's gone by the time he bites, but he still gets it, right? So that's one of the beauties of notifies. So we want it to go right about here, where he's grabbing, right? That we'll add another notify, new notify, eat, bite, okay? And at the very end, when he finishes it and he swallows it, we're going to add one more notify, eat, end. Okay. And this will have a lot of use in the future here, so save that. Alright, next we're going to go into our animation blueprint again. And now we've got those notifies, so just like with sitting, we're going to add a couple more over here. And let's just comment this up just to be clean. So sitting notifies. Gonna make that black. And then we're also going to do these. So first, just like before, you would just do eat, start, and just click that. Add the event. You don't need to do this. Don't do call function. Just add event. So do that for each one of these. Start, bite, and end. And then you want to create a new variable for each of these. So make it a variable called eat start, eat byte, and I think that's it. We don't need eat end because we're actually going to set that from the character. So for eat start, just plug in your variable eat start and check it. So we're saying yes, we are starting to eat. For eat byte, yes, we are starting to byte. And then for eat end, we want to make sure that we are clearing byte and clearing start, because if we're at the end of our eat, obviously we're not biting or starting to eat. And we also want to turn off eating. So from our character here, we want to toggle this off when we're done taking that we're done chomping on that and eating something. So we take the character, again, it's right here, you just drag it out, drag off this, do, oops, set eat, do set eat, there you go, plug it in like so. And what that's going to do is when he's done actually eating, it'll clear this out so that he can move around, because we want to use this eating to decide if he can move, since, you know, just like in the aisle, if you're actively eating something, it's going to be playing that animation, and you can't just immediately stop eating and run away. It kind of, there's a minute that it takes to get to where you're kind of vulnerable if somebody runs up on you and you're in the middle of eating. So we're going to kind of try to mimic that. Alright, so now that we have this all set up, we're going to add a eating state, and I'm going to show you how to do that. And this part's going to be a little tricky. So you remember here, we had this. We had this plugged in, this look thing plugged in where this is at right now. So what you're going to do, so you're going to add a new state machine. And you can just right click, state machine, click on that like so, and then you just double click to open it up. And again, go back over here. You want to make sure that you click it, rename it. We're going to name this one actions. And again, this is going to let us really decide how we're blending our movement with actions. So that maybe if we're doing a certain kind of attack or something, we still want to have certain levels of movement in there. We might want to blend those together. And then we're also going to control our weight. So here we had a 0, I think it was 0.7 or 0.9. You just want to drag that out, promote to variable, name that action weight. And there's a reason. Once you hit compile and you save that, the action weight should, if you did it that way, automatically have a 0.9 or 0.7. I think I adjusted it to 0.7. But go ahead and make sure that is actually set for your default down here. Your default, that it's 0.7 or 0.9, whatever you want it to be at, right? Whatever makes you comfortable. I moved this over here as well because we might want to add our montages and stuff after this happens. We'll see about that. There's a lot of interchangeable options we have with blending our state machines this way that it'll give us a lot to work with. So there's so much you can do with it like this. So go in here and we're going to add a default, right? And the default here, we're not going to put anything in here. This is just going to be empty. We don't have an animation to play. But we want to do our look, and this is, so you wanted to, again, just drag out, add a state, name it look, and this is where you're going to paste that left-right look thing that we had earlier. Just paste it in here, and you can plug it into the output. And then, on initial update, you're going to click on that, create binding, right? That'll give you a binding, it'll open up. And that binding will take you to this. It'll have you this and this in there. So we're actually going to take, and this is the cool part, so for each one of these states within our actions, we can adjust the weight of the blend and customize it so that that blend completely can differ depending on what actions we're doing or what movements we're doing. There's so much you could do with it. So take your action weight, just go ahead and drag it in. You can drag it, drop it there, and it'll give you that. And then go ahead and set that for the onUpdate look to 0.7. And just go ahead and save it. Compile and save. Alright. So then back in our, let's see, back in here in our actions, we're in our look state, so we're done with that. Go back to actions, and we're gonna, so to go from default to look, the only thing we need to do is, are we not eating? And we're gonna have more here maybe, where it'll be like, are we not doing this or that? And basically, you know, do we want to be able to look around? That's basically what it's saying. So if we're eating, we don't want to be able to look around with our look animation. So we're going to default to our look animation unless we're eating. Unless we're eating, we're going to do our look animation, and we're going to blend that in with our movement. And then if we are done, if we are going from look to default again, it's the opposite. So if we are eating, we don't want to be looking around. We want to be doing our eating animation. That's an action, right? That's what we're storing in here. So we're just going to check, are we eating? So we go from look to default if we're eating. And that kind of takes us back to the square root here. The square core of it, rather, I should say. So with that handle, these are so simple. You want to just go ahead and drag off, do another state, name it eat. And in eat, we're going to take that eating animation we made earlier over here. This one, just drag it in there, plug it into there. Make sure when you click on this, you want to actually have loop animation turned off. Make sure that it's not on because we don't want to just keep playing it over and over. And go ahead and plug that in. And then again, it's kind of, you know, obvious. So if we're not eating, we want to go back to default. So this one here, you drag it over there into default. And then for this, just not eating, not, and then just eating, you do not. Cool. And we're getting eating again from over here, which is the variable that we made from our character. Okay. So back into, got all this junk open here. Gets a little messy sometimes, but that's okay. Here we go, actions. So we're done with that. When we are not eating, we go back to default. Again, if we are eating, we go into default. Or we go into eating. We go from default to eating if we are eating. Self-explanatory. So this is a thing. We're going to plug this in here like we did in our actions. So these are our action animations. But in our movement animation, we're kind of going to do the same thing. And it's going to be the exact same check. Are we eating? Drag it over here, state machine. Or not state machine, but state. Drag it over here, do state. For walk, run, whatever, to eat. And this is my other AVP. I don't know why I opened that, but it's the same thing over here. So right here, you just want to go from idle, add state, eat, and then walk. Well, we don't want to eat if we're doing that, if we're walking or running. So we actually want to go from idle. We want to go from idle exclusively into eat. If we are eating, I have two of these open, so don't mind me if it's confusing, just ignore that. If we are eating, we want to go into eat. And if we are not eating, so not bool. If we are not eating, we go back into idle. And then again, eating, just get your eating animation. I need to rename these and clean them up a bit. Get our eating animation, plug it in, make sure it is not set to looping, compile and save. Right? What that's gonna do is anim graph. Anim graph. Now, when we blend our movement and our animation, it's taking our eating animation and our eating animation, and so it's just going to default out. It's just going to play the eating animation. But maybe later, if we wanted to have like a, like say a crouch. Let's say we're crouching and we're crawling through the grass and we want to do eating animation. We can blend them together so easily just by changing the movement to crouch. Then doing the eating animation, it'll blend that eating with like a crouched pose. So like I said, there's so much you can do from here to kind of change it out. And you can really control it with this action weight. And our action weight right now, we're just going to keep the default 0.7. But again, if we really wanted to customize it more, you can go back to your eat. And then on this output animation pose, under, not the movements, but actions. Under this, you can go to on initiate update. And you can create a new binding. Call this on eat. Okay. And then you get that action weight. We could adjust it. So again, let's do it at a full 1 here, so that it just plays just the first one. Because we don't need to be playing two blended animations if it's the same thing. And then just make sure everything's plugged in like so. Nice and well balanced. And you're pretty much good to go for that. Alright, so that's it for the animation blueprints. I know they can be a little complicated, and I didn't help because I have two of them here. I have my old one that I was referencing and kind of showing you guys, and then my new one that I was working on along with you in the last one. I'll move it all together so that it's up to date, but for the next video. So I'm still kind of new to this, so just bear with me. But if you have any questions, let me know. Hopefully it's kind of self-explanatory. Anyways, moving on. Let's go to the let's see, character. Yeah, we're gonna go back to our character. Alright. So we've got this in here. We don't really have our interact object yet, but we will get to that in just a minute. But another thing I wanted to do, so up here in our look, where we were doing our look to look around, I was completely mistaken. It wasn't during sitting that your camera gets locked, it was during eating or drinking. So instead of doing the sitting, what I did was just I got rid of the sitting bowl here, and I just swapped it out for our eating bowl. You don't need to do anything else, and it'll just take care of itself. And then over here for movements, instead of doing just sitting, well, we don't want to be able to move while we're eating either. So you want to do or, be, or bool, right? Don't do the other ones. And then just drag in the eating. Drag that in there, and then, you know, put that right there, and then there you go. And then if you are sitting or if you're eating, don't move, right? And you can just add. We can also do some more state stuff later, which we'll probably get to eventually. But right now we kind of want to keep it to the basics. Eventually we're going to move this whole thing over into a multiplayer system to where you can actually host and play this with your friends. And we're going to have the whole thing good to go. You will actually be able to play this multiplayer. We'll get the whole thing set up, but right now we're just doing the basics, and we'll move it over bit by bit after that. Alright, so we've got that in there. And then, let's see, we're going to do our hunger in the next video, so don't worry about that. And I think that's all we need. I think that's all we need for right now. So let's comment that. For now, we'll call this interact. Oops. Okay. So the character's done, the animation blueprint's done. The next thing we probably want to do is make something to interact with when we're eating, right? So let's get to that. So when we think about the objects we're going to interact with in the world, we need to think about kind of the best way to keep it nice and organized and where they can kind of, what things share code basically, right? So, for example, we have our master character class here, and the reason that we create child characters out of it is because each child character, like this one here, inherits the code from the master, because we don't want to have to rewrite it. That's just silly, and it's a waste of space, really. We want to be able to make something that can do the same thing. So we want like a master item class, and this will just be anything in the world that we can interact with. And it'll kind of have the base code in that, and then the children of that master class might have a bit of their own code or variables that will be a little bit different, and kind of determine how we interact with that object. And from that, you can really add a lot. You could add, like, I don't know, if you wanted to add some Jurassic Park elements or something, you could add doors and buttons, or you could add puzzles, or you could maybe add rocks that you can move around, or just, you know, things to interact with, a nest to build, for example, you know, stuff like that. So we're going to make our base one. So let's go back to our main, and then you want to make a folder called objects here, okay? Because again, we want to keep it nice and organized. So create your objects folder here, just right click, new folder, name it objects. And then go in there, and you're going to create a interact master. And this is going to be a actor. So right click, go to blueprint class. You want to click actor, and then just BP, and you want to do interact master. I'll just add a 1 there just to show that. And then we're just gonna we're just gonna delete that one, but open that up when we're done, right? Make sure you compile it, save it if you need to. So for this, let's go to the viewport here so we can actually see it. We're going to add two things. One, you're going to add a collision. Collision it's a hitbox. It's a thing that when it is interacted with, you can do stuff. It detects collision. It detects a hit. It detects that something is touching it, right? And we need that for the object to be like, okay, I'm being interacted with. I, need to do something about that. The type you want to add, it's kind of up to you. I like spheres because it feels a little more encompassing than like a box with those kind of weird corners, and most realistic objects are more likely to be, especially natural objects, tend to be more rounded than square. So I went with a sphere collision. Just click that, it'll give it to you. And I went ahead and I set the radius here to 64. And then while having this selected, sphere, add another static mesh, okay? And you want that static mesh to be, see how it's attached on that? If it's not, if it's attached to, say, like your default root, you want to just grab it and drag it and just drop it on sphere so that it's staggered like this. And the reason why is it makes the sphere the parent and the static mesh is the child of the sphere. The reason that's important is because if I take my sphere and I scale it up, notice that the mesh scales with it. So that's a really easy way that, the reason we're doing it like this is, for example, if we had it the other way around, if the sphere was on top of the static mesh instead, then if I scaled up my sphere, the mesh wouldn't scale with it, or if I scale my mesh, it would scale outside the bounds of the sphere. It's just a lot messier. So you kind of want to do it like this, and then for your static mesh, you can also scale that to where you want it. And so you want to have a little room between your collision here and the actual object, because if the object is in the way of the collision, then they can't reach your collision. So this is one of those things where you need to kind of toy with it and just kind of see how big of a space of collision you want to have. Just have the size of your hitbox, essentially. Play with it, tinker with it, take your time with it until you get it kind of where you want it to be. I found at around 0.75 works for me with this. And by the way, this mesh is just a generic mesh that comes with Unreal. We're going to actually put a proper meaty, chunky carcass that you can eat out of here later. Right now, we're just testing it out. So under static mesh, click here, and I just clicked on cylinder. If you can't find it immediately, just type it in, and you'll get that there, and you can select that and add it to there. So again, I have the scale at 0.75. If you don't like that, that's fine. Do whatever you like. We'll do more with this later. This is just a base, and this is really just our parent class, so it doesn't really matter how it looks, to be honest. And then we're going to go into our event graph when we're done. So go into your event graph, right? Now you're going to see something called event actor begin overlap. Well, if you hover over it, it tells you exactly what it is. If you don't see that, then you can just right click and then do event actor, and you'll see here begin overlap or end overlap or whatever. You want to do it for the actor. You can do it for the collision if you want to, if you prefer. I like doing it for the actor because it'll just be any kind of overlap. It'll cause this. But if you want to be a lot more precise or just not have it interact with your mesh or whatever, you can just do the collision exclusively. But this works for me for now. So the next thing we want to do is we want to figure out what is the object that is interacting with me. I'm a random object on the ground somewhere. What the heck? Something's interacting with me. What is it? So the other actor, what is that? I'm going to drag off that. We're going to cast. Now, really quick later on, we're going to probably move some of these casts into something called an interface, which will reduce our resource pool. It'll optimize basically. But we're going to go over the whole thing for optimizing later, and right now we just want to get this working for the basics for you to learn. From there, we're going to make this into a proper game though. So we'll get to that another time. So right now we're going to cast to our master class, not the master object that we just made, which is ourself, but the character. From here, so remember in our master character that we created this interact object. Well, we're going to set it now. So something's overlapping. And we're like, okay, well, there's a character, something interlapping with us, and we know it's a character if we are managing to make this cast. So we're like, okay, is it of this class? BP character master. Is it from that class? Is it one of those character types? If it is, we're going to pull out and we're going to set interact object. So we're taking that character, we're taking the variable interact object on that character, and we are setting it to self. So we're saying the object, I want this character to know that the object it's interacting with is me, right? And then, obviously, if we're walking away, and really quick, if the cast fails, that means that whoever's interacting with us is not a player character, so just ignore it. Who cares? But we don't want to stay as an interactive object if the character walks away because, well, they're not interacting with us anymore. So we want to do event actor end overlap. Again, if you don't have it, right click, end overlap. Make sure you do this one right here, and then it's kind of the same thing as this. You kind of just want to copy it. So again, is it a character we're interacting with? Because if it's not, who cares? If it is, we're going to get the interact object, and we're going to say, is that interact object equal, is the interact object equal to me? Is it me? So again, you would just type self. So, is this player interacting with an object, and if they are, is it me? If it is me, we're going to just clear it. We're just going to take that character, we're going to do set interact object, and we're just going to set it to nothing. We just set it like this, we don't plug anything in there, it automatically sets it to nothing. If it is not me, that means that I might be overlapping them, but they're interacting with something else, and I don't want to mess that up, so I'm just going to leave it be, right? Really, really simple, right? So make sure you compile and save that. We're almost done. So from here, you want to right click on that master character or master item. We're going to create a child, and for me, I named it BP underscore carcass. I'm going to open that up. You just go to open full blueprint editor here, and you'll see this right here. We want to leave that. So these are the things that we programmed into the master class. This is the code we're not going to have to repeat, which is awesome. Now, if you want, you can go in here and you can change this mesh to whatever you like. Let's see, maybe not that big. Let's do a smaller cube. So we'll do like a cube, right? And I want to build again, be able to kind of interact with that. So let's do 0.25, 0.33, maybe. Let's do a little bit smaller, 0.3. It's still a little bit too big. We want to give enough room to kind of get in there, so let's do 0.27. There we go. And I'll show you why this is kind of cool with these. So I have a carcass here, and let's see, I did another one, right? Let's create another child. We'll do BP. Let's say we have like 3 different kinds of carcasses, like a small carcass, a medium carcass, and a big carcass. So we'll say BP small carcass, right? And again, that's just a right click, create child. Then for this one, let's say we take that static mesh and we set it to something else. So let's see here, we're just looking through the base mesh that comes with the game. Okay. Let's do, I think there was a cone. Yeah, let's do cone. Alright, so this will be that, the small carcass, right? So if I take these, I open up my world here, and I just grab like the regular size carcass in here and put that kind of there. Put a small carcass and put that over there. They both have the same code, so I can interact with them without having to change anything, and yet they're 2 different objects. And they can each have their own code in them, their own variables, how much food they have to them, what kind of food it is, what kind of diet it might affect, all those things. It's so much easier. So we have our interact objects. They're checking for overlap, and we're now getting them set, right? So this is being set, and if it's there, eat. If it's not there, don't eat. So why don't we try it out? And again, we're gonna do the UI stuff. You'll see some UI stuff down here. Just consider that like a sneak peek. We're gonna do that in the next video. But this one is, I think, good for now. So let's have a look. Okay, so again, if you look to the right, that's what we're gonna get to in the next video. You can see my hunger kind of ticking down. But right now, we just have our little guy here. His animations are working. He looks great. He looks nice and happy. He's getting bigger by the minute. We can see these food objects, right? So let's, I think that's one I placed earlier. We're going to go over to these guys, right? So, if I hit E, it's not doing anything, because there's nothing to interact with. But if I go over to this little piece of food over here, and I stand in front of it, and I hit E, look at that, he's eating from it. And if I hit E again, he eats. Now if I hit E and I try to move, I can't move until he is done. See, until he is done with that animation, I can't do anything. And again, if I'm not right up on it, if I'm not here to eat it, hitting E doesn't do anything. And then over here with this one, hit E, he's going to put his whole face in there and eat it. Right? So, again, I might, see, this is why you need to really check your collisions, because this will actually, I might need to be a little bigger of a collision space, so that I don't have to really get up in there. But it's very much kind of touch and feel with stuff like that. So, you can see he's eating it. He does his little animation, he takes a bite, he numbs it down. And there you go. And he's had his fill, even though we're actually starving in the UI. So yeah, and everything else works just fine. We're, you know, good to go. It all blends well. We look great. Don't mind his little tail bend there. I've been playing with the animations and I kind of broke his tail, so I'll fix that before I put it out. But again, I will have the animations. I will have this whole model and all his animations once more. In the comments. You can download it, you can use it however you like. Don't try to sell it or something like that. I'll find it. I sell stuff on the Unreal Marketplace. I'll find you. Don't do it. There are laws. But you can use this for whatever you want. If you want to make a game and sell your game and use the model, I really don't care. Have fun with it. Whatever. We'll add more to it later. But yeah, so this is kind of the basics here. You can now eat food. You can interact with stuff. We do a cute little eating animation. We're gonna probably want to clean that up a little bit, but yeah, it's not bad at all. It's starting to look like a proper game. So I'll make some nice mesh to go with these carcasses. Maybe it might not be. It might take me about a week from when this video comes out, just because I'm busy with a lot of stuff right now, and especially just working on all this. But, yeah. I think we're coming along pretty well. Alright. So that's that. We'll work on the UI in the next one. Maybe do some cleanup stuff. We'll see. And we'll go from there. So thank you again for joining me. Please like and comment and subscribe and all that good stuff if you want to help out. If you have any questions, if you have any issues, anything going on, let me know. I will do what I can to help you. And we'll go from there. Alright. Bye-bye.